Okay, I'm actually not gonna say it. Everybody else is saying it. It's kind of a cliche, but now let's not do this, right? Yeah, I put the stage behind me. I get it. Yeah, and the thing is all the other reviewers are saying it, and it's just, it is what it is. Fine, I'll say it. Here goes. Live. This movie was one of the most anticipated movies for me, and I was really excited to see this one. I've been an SNL fan for years, and for all the good and the bad over the years, SNL has given us some of the most memorable skits and has given us some of the most hilarious, quotable, rewatchable movies of all time. Without the influence of SNL, we wouldn't have movies like Happy Gilmore, The Blues Brothers, Ghostbusters, Wayne's World, Caddyshack, Tommy Boy, Vacation, and so many more movies that included actors who got their start from SNL that, you got to pay respect to the show itself. It's really been a huge contribution to comedy for the past 40 to 50 years. Saturday Night, the movie, gives you a look into the chaotic 90 minutes leading up to the very first episode of Saturday Night Live. The first episode aired on October 11, 1975, which is kind of cool that they scheduled the release of this movie on the same day. The show was actually called Saturday Night, mainly because ABC had already had a show called Saturday Night Live with Howard Cosell. NBC's Saturday Night featured the not ready for primetime players who were John Belushi, Gilda Radner, Dan Aykroyd, Jane Curtis, Lorraine Newman, Garrett Morris, and of course, the fantastic but, not very humble Chevy Chase. We've all heard the horror stories. This film, we see through the eyes of Lorne Michaels during that chaos of that 90 minutes before the show airs, figuring out how to keep the show from falling apart before the NBC network actually pulls the show off the air and runs a old episode of Johnny Carson. The film's directed by Jason Reitman. He's the director of Juno, Up in the Air, and Ghostbusters Afterlife. He's also one of my favorite directors, along with his famous father, Ivan Reitman, who recently passed away. And he's also known for directing Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters, and the Ghostbusters sequel. He also did Stripes. I love Ivan Reitman, and his son just follows in his footsteps. First off, about this movie, the set is amazing. So they actually created the original Studio 8H set based off the original blueprints of the show. It looks really, really incredible, and if you've been a fan of the show from the beginning, you're going to feel at home in a sense. You look around, everything's built to scale. Everything's exactly how it was before. A lot of love was put into this set, and it's absolutely beautiful. Everything that happens is actually based off of these Zoom calls that Jason Reitman and his staff had with everyone that they could talk to who was actually on the set for that first show. They do take some liberties with some of the stories, and put some events that didn't happen until later on in the season. But I think they did a really great job telling the story in the time that they had to tell it. They had all the old 70s cameras, cranes, and boom mics. It really had that authentic feel of the 1970s show. The score was recorded in real time on set by the great Jon Batiste, who also plays the musical guest Billy Preston. The music Batiste creates feels like SNL music. It makes you feel really good, and it makes you feel like you're in it with the cast. Batiste has a great scene with Lamorne Morris, who plays Garrett Morris, who there's no relation there, by the way. Can I take a second to talk about Morris's performance as Garrett Morris? I know everyone is talking about Corey Michael Smith as Chevy Chase, which he does an amazing job. But I think that you have to really give it to Lamorne Morris for one of the best performances in this movie. He really channeled Garrett without making it seem like a parody of him. Garrett Morris in the film is wondering why he's there. One sketch that he has with Dan Aykroyd, he doesn't even have any lines. You feel this awkward elephant in the room feeling, and Morris plays this character with perfection. In the end of the movie, he has a scene while doing it, he goes into this song, and I couldn't help but laugh out loud and smile, and it was really funny. His performance is probably one of the best I've seen in a while. Again, Corey Michael Smith plays Chevy Chase perfectly. You see his cockiness and lack of humility you would expect from Chase. He has some fantastic scenes. He makes you feel like you'd really like to know Chevy, but at the same time, make you feel like you're glad you don't know him. I loved Matt Wood as James Belushi. He makes Belushi a person with depth and angst that we don't hear much about. You don't know a lot about Belushi's personality. He just seems like this outlandish, funny guy. And I love this movie because he keeps him outlandish, but also shows who he really is and was during that time. I was going into this thinking that Belushi would be one of the hard characters to play, that it would look like a parody, but it was perfect, in my opinion. It was perfect. Dylan O'Brien was Dan Aykroyd, and I'm like, Dylan O'Brien from like the Maze Runner and what was that, Teen Wolf TV show on MTV? His performance was awesome. I loved his performance, and I wanted to see more of him on screen. He has a scene where they are rehearsing a skit called Hard Hats. And if you've seen the skit, it's where the girls are playing construction workers, and they're catcalling Aykroyd, who's wearing a tank top and really short shorts. If you watch the original skit from season 1, it actually stars Lily Tomlin, and it's still pretty funny for today's standards and for today's age. But in the movie, during rehearsal, you see how uncomfortable Aykroyd is with the skit and how he just wants it to end, and he feels objectified by these women in real life, just in the rehearsal. It says a lot about the skit and how SNL turns society norms on their head and the ridiculous things that we do as a culture that we shouldn't accept as the norm. He has an amazing performance. He sounds like Dan Aykroyd. He looks like him. And again, not in a parody way, but it was a nice balance. It was amazing. Ella Hunt as Gilda Radner was great, along with Emily Farron as Lorraine Newman. But they didn't get a lot of screen time, and that was a real bummer because they both could have had so many great scenes. Kim Matula, who plays Jane Curtin, I hardly even saw. She has one scene that gave her something to do, but I feel like her talent was kind of wasted here. I know this couldn't be a 4-hour movie, even though it could have. I'm sure they had the material, but I'm hoping there's a cut with all the deleted scenes that give all these amazing actresses the time they deserve, because they were really great. Nicholas Braun plays Jim Henson and Andy Kaufman. He does a great job at both, but he really nails the Jim Henson role. I remember watching that Jim Henson Muppet skit on the first episode, and it was really cringy. Hardly got any laughs, and it was really hard to watch. I don't remember if they were aliens or dragons or what, but the skit was pretty terrible. J.K. Simmons as Milton Berle was hard to watch, but amazing. Matthew Rhys was George Carlin, in my opinion. Nicholas Podny was Billy Crystal, and he was fantastic. There were so many great performances that if I described how amazing each one was, this video would be over an hour long. There are so many great performances in this movie, but Gabriel Labelle's a huge standout as Lorne Michaels. He really gets his character. Everything from the facial expressions to the way Michael talks, but not in an exaggerated way. He could have gone that way, but he didn't, but you still kind of hear that inflection. And his, what I call, I guess, a passive anxiety, if that makes any sense, was amazing. I wouldn't be surprised if he was nominated for an Oscar here. Coming off of the Fabelmans movie, I saw him as Spielberg, and I was worried that I would still see him as Spielberg. But Lavelle is a chameleon actor, and I think that his career is going to skyrocket after this. I'm sure he'll have more than one Oscar before he's done with acting. I think this movie will generate a lot of Oscar buzz. The cinematography is beautiful, shot in 16mm and scaled up to 4K. The cinematographer here is absolutely fantastic, shot on Kodak film. There are so many great tracking shots and whip hands, and I know they're there to really bump up the anxiety and purpose of the 90 minutes to air. The camera blocking had to take a lot of time to get right. It looks really sophisticated, and it's super impressive. This movie, you could tell that it was done with so much love. There's a scene where a guy on staff is eating out of a box of Colon Blow cereal, which was one of my favorite parody commercials with Phil Hartman done on SNL in 1989. The detail in the hated bee costumes were so nostalgic for me, and I love seeing them. This movie does have a few flaws, but honestly, they aren't really worth mentioning. My main complaint is that some of the dialogue made the fast-paced movie drag just a little bit, but thinking back, it was, in my opinion, giving us a second to catch our breath, I guess, before we actually go back to the chaos. The end of this movie feels amazing. Of course, everything comes together in the end. We know this because, well, the show aired on October 11th, 1975, like it was supposed to. But because of the editing and the way that it was told, I felt like it might not happen. That's amazing storytelling and filmmaking. When everything comes together and works together to start the show, there's a scene where the cast takes a photo on the stairs on the set, and Batiste plays this music that sounds so much like the end of the SNL episodes where everyone's saying goodnight and hugging. It feels like the end of a Saturday Night Live episode. That music that really makes you feel good at the end. I love that song. It's been on there for years. It felt like the end of a Saturday Night Live episode. And it just makes you feel good. Even the credits are fun to watch because they made the credits into an SNL open with the same music and the stills of the cast on the streets of New York. The end of the movie, you see the first ever sketch called Wolverines, and the movie ends with Chevy Chase saying that famous line, of course, live from New York at Saturday night. It was a nice ending. I like how they ended it that way. I really didn't want this movie to end. I loved it so much. I'm really excited to see it again, and I can't wait till it comes on digital because I'm going to buy it right away. By the way, if you end up really liking this movie, go over to Max and check the new series, The Franchise, out. It stars Himesh Patel, who starred in the film yesterday and plays as a first AD working on a Marvel-type superhero movie. It's a fantastic series so far. And if you're into behind-the-scenes filmmaking like I am, or if you've ever worked on a major film set, you'll love this series. It was created by Sam Mendes, and it's all about the anxiety that comes with making a major motion picture. It premiered October 6th, and new episodes come out on Max every Sunday, I believe. They only have one episode right now, but check it out. It's really funny, it's educational, it's a fun watch. I think you'll really like it. Saturday Night is a near-perfect movie with some of the best acting that I've seen this year. It has a lot of laughs, a lot of heart, and amazing directing and cinematography. It's sure to be nominated for a few Oscars, and it may just be my favorite movie of the year so far, and that's why I'm giving this movie a 9 out of 10 Oscar noms. Go see this movie before it leaves theaters. I promise you're going to have a good time. So are you guys planning to see Saturday Night? If you have, let me know what you thought. And like and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more movie reviews and you found this channel helpful. If not, that's okay too. And remember, don't wait till it's streamed. Support your local theaters and let's see it together.